In our headlines on this Tuesday afternoon, September 3rd, here in South Korea. The Consumer Price Index rises 2% on year in August in a clear sign of stabilization, and authorities vow to keep inflation within the lower 2% range by closely monitoring the market and responding accordingly. And the government is deploying military medical personnel to emergency care units nationwide in response to public concerns over accessible medical services, especially during the Chuseok holiday in mid-September. Meanwhile, over in Israel, demonstrators continue to demand Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seal a ceasefire deal with Hamas to bring home all remaining hostages taken during the October 7th assault. We start with some promising numbers. Korea's inflation has eased to the government's target range. Findings for August show consumer prices marked an annual growth of 2%. Our Park Gun-woo reports.
Inflation in South Korea is showing signs of stabilizing as it reached the government's target in the 2% range last month. According to Statistics Korea on Tuesday, the Consumer Price Index saw an on-year rise of 2% in August. That's the smallest jump since March 2021. Smaller increases in the prices for petroleum products due to lower international oil prices and farm produce were given as the main reasons. The Consumer Price Index has been under 3% for 5 straight months since April. It has also been continuously seeing on-year falls since then, except for a slight jump in July. The price of petroleum products rose by 0.1% on year in August, a sharp drop compared to July when it spiked by 8%. Farm products soared by 3.6%, again a smaller rise than July when it jumped by 9%. The price of pears skyrocketed by some 120%. However, according to an official from Statistics Korea, the price will fall with newly harvested pears available soon. Also during a Vice Ministerial Economic meeting held on Tuesday, First Vice Minister of Economy and Finance Kim Bum-seok said the government predicts inflation to stay at in the low 2% range due to stabilizing oil and farm product prices. Kim also said the government will do its best to manage prices of high-demand products ahead of the Chuseok holiday in order to keep prices low. He said it will be releasing 170,000 tons of high-demand products, including apples and pears, along with supporting discounts for agricultural and fisheries products. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, concerns over accessible emergency care, especially during the Chuseok holiday in mid-September, have led to government deployment of military doctors to relevant facilities. Our Choi Min-jung has details.
Around 6 months since the mass resignation of resident doctors, public concern is mounting over the country's emergency care system. With the lack of personnel in emergency units, the government has decided to deploy military doctors to fill the gaps.
We'll deploy replacement personnel, including military doctors and public health doctors, as soon as possible.
On Wednesday, a total of 15 military doctors will be deployed to medical institutions with limited emergency care. Starting next Monday, approximately 235 military and public health doctors will be dispatched to high-risk institutions. The government also laid out measures to prevent a potential medical crisis during the upcoming Chuseok holiday in the 3rd week of September. This comes as the medical community warns that more university hospitals will close emergency rooms during the holiday, while the number of patients is bound to increase.
We'll operate emergency response weeks for approximately 2 weeks, from September 11th to 25th, and make every effort to minimize disruption in treating severe emergency patients.
The lack of personnel has caused university hospitals to suspend the running of emergency rooms during the night and on holidays, causing concern that people will not receive proper emergency treatment. According to the Health Ministry, however, 99% of the emergency rooms are still operating 24 hours a day, while around 6% are operating with a reduced number of beds. The total number of doctors working in emergency rooms is a little over 74% of the average. Monday's briefing was the government's first daily briefing held to provide the public with up-to-date details on emergency care. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
In other news, October 1st marks Armed Forces Day here in South Korea, and this year the day may be designated a temporary holiday. The motion for designation was passed by the cabinet earlier on this Tuesday morning and now awaits President Yoon Suk-yeol's final approval. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo explained the cabinet's decision on such designation seeks to boost public interest in defense security and to honor the selfless services of the country's armed forces. At the Parliament, lawmakers of the 22nd National Assembly held their official opening ceremony Monday afternoon and pledged to promote and protect public interests. Our correspondent Lee Si-hoo covers the event.
On Monday, the 22nd National Assembly officially celebrated its opening, over 3 months into its term, and 300 lawmakers were finally sworn in.
국회의원의 직무를 양심에 따라 성실히 수행할 것을 국민 앞에 엄숙히 선서합니다.
Speaker Woo Won-sik delivered celebratory remarks and said he hoped the event would serve as an opportunity for representatives to reflect on the past 3 months and also recollect their determination in working for the people.
The National Assembly will do all it can to achieve its mission to protect the people and move forward into the future.
Woo vowed that rival lawmakers would work together to tackle immediate pending issues, such as surging deepfake sexual exploitation cases and the worsening of extreme weather conditions. In the long term, the Assembly will work to alleviate population issues amid the low birth rate and aging society. The ceremony was initially scheduled for early July, but was postponed amid bickering between the rival parties over pending issues. Monday's event marks the longest wait for an opening ceremony since a constitutional amendment in 1987 that consolidated democracy in the country. Meanwhile, President Yoon Suk-yeol did not attend the ceremony, as according to an official at the presidential office, he awaits the normalization of parliament where opposition lawmakers have been unilaterally pushing for certain bills, calling for a special prosecutor and the impeachment of nominated officials. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, along with other key members of the cabinet, attended the ceremony. Also invited were people from all walks of life, including small business owners, scientists, firefighters, medical workers, and the descendants of ethnic Koreans who resided in former Soviet Union states in Central Asia. Monday also marked the beginning of the Assembly's first 100-day regular session. Coming up first in this are speeches by rival bloc leaders, questioning of government officials, and further potential bipartisan negotiations on livelihood bills, as the lawmakers prepare for an inspection of government ministries and departments next month. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
The 100 domestic helpers from the Philippines begin work in Korea starting today. Following a 4-week training program, these helpers will work up to 40 hours a week at 157 households here in Seoul. Amid a shortage of local workers, the government has set up a special program permitting the hiring of foreign caregivers to look after children. Now, 60% of the Koreans who've signed up for the 6-month pilot program are working couples with multiple children. Eventually, the government hopes to expand the number of foreign caregivers to 1,200. Hosting a banquet for American senators back on Monday, President Yoon Suk-yeol reaffirmed the importance of the South Korea-U.S. alliance as well as the trilateral partnership with Japan. In response to the president's remarks, Senator Bill Hagerty and Senator Chris Coons shared their support, saying solidarity between Seoul and Washington is more important than ever in light of the current geopolitical events. They also praised President Yoon for his proactive approach to enhancing ties between Seoul and Tokyo. Meanwhile, the banquet menu was selected by First Lady Kim Gun-hee and included popular Korean dishes like tteokbokki, kimchi stew, and seafood pancakes. On the international front, demonstrators in Israel continue to demand Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seal a ceasefire deal with Hamas to bring home all remaining hostages. Our An Sung-jin has the latest.
Protests in Israel headed into the second day with hundreds of thousands of protesters pouring into the streets. The country also saw suspension of services by general strikes over anger at the government's failure to secure a deal that sees the release of hostages. These are the largest protests in Israel since the attack by Hamas last October. As the overnight demonstrations continued throughout Monday, the country's largest labor union threatened to shut down the entire economy. This comes as public fury grows over the deaths of 6 hostages who had been seized by Hamas.
When we hear about the 6 bodies that they came back, I think everybody feel like they have to do something, and I think it's one of the reasons that so many people came out from home.
Demonstrators voiced that the hostages could have returned alive if Netanyahu's government had successfully agreed a deal with Hamas. Hamas said that Gaza captives will return in coffins if Israel continues its attacks in Gaza, after it released a video on Telegram of the 6 hostages when they were alive, which demanded for a ceasefire deal. The Hamas statement also said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would be fully responsible for the death of the captives. Netanyahu responded that they were close to the deal and that Hamas will pay a very heavy price for this. However, when asked on Monday whether Netanyahu was doing enough to reach a ceasefire, U.S. President Joe Biden responded no to the reporters at the White House. Biden added that he was close to presenting a final proposal for a deal to release hostages, but negotiations mediated by the United States, Qatar, and Egypt so far failed to reach an accord. Out of the 250 hostages that had been held captive by Hamas since last October, less than half have made it back home. At least 70 have died and the rest still remain unaccounted for, with uncertainty on whether they are still alive. Meanwhile, the UK announced a partial ban on weapon exports to Israel, suspending 30 out of 350 weapon exports licensed to Israel over a, quote, clear risk the exports could be used to breach international law. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And elsewhere, Russia has shared intentions to revise its nuclear weapon use policy, while Ukraine calls for additional arms support from the West. Our Lee Sing-jae reports.
While Ukraine continues incursions in Russian territory, Russia is also making advances in key Ukrainian regions. This includes the city of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region, from where Ukrainians are evacuating and leaving everything behind as Russian forces close in. If Russia takes over the city, it would be a major blow to Ukraine, as it's known as a key transportation hub and logistics center for its military supplies. In response, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is calling on the West to lift restrictions on long-range missiles, while also requesting more weapons, which he says have already been agreed upon. Amid the escalating tensions, Moscow said it will revise its nuclear doctrine containing the principles of nuclear weapons use. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said Sunday that it will revise the doctrine in order to lower the threshold for nuclear weapons use due to the West's escalating provocations. In 2020, under a decree by President Vladimir Putin, the doctrine says Russia may use its nuclear weapons in the event of a nuclear attack by an enemy or a conventional attack that threatens the existence of the country. One of Russia's biggest allies in China expressed concerns over such threat, stressing that Moscow should regain its composure and prevent a nuclear escalation. Meanwhile, Putin made a state visit to Mongolia on Monday, despite an arrest warrant for the Russian leader from the International Criminal Court. Mongolia is a member of the ICC and are bound to detain those that have an arrest warrant issued for them. The ICC issued his arrest warrant nearly 18 months ago on charges of war crimes in Ukraine. Despite this, the Russian leader was welcomed by the Mongolian foreign minister upon arrival. Ukraine, the EU, and the ICC have called for Putin to be arrested. However, the court does not have any enforcement mechanism that would make the warrant effective. Lee Sung-jae, Arirang News.
At the Paralympics in Paris, Team Korea clinched yet another gold medal on Monday. Our Choi Seong covers that match and more.
South Korean Paralympic athlete Jeong Ho-won won a gold medal in boccia at the 2024 Paris Paralympic Games on Monday. The 38-year-old defeated Australia's Daniel Michel 5-2 in the men's singles event for his fourth overall Paralympics gold medal. With this, Team Korea now has 3 gold medals at the Games so far. Also, Team Korea set a record by winning their 10th consecutive gold in boccia, going back to the 1988 Seoul Games. Boccia is a game where players with cerebral palsy or other neurological conditions aim to get balls as close as possible to a target. It was officially added to the Paralympics in 1984. Team Korea's Jeong Ho-won also won a silver medal in the same event. And Team Korea added a few more medals, including Choi Jung-man winning a silver medal in the men's singles badminton event after losing in the final to Chi Zi-mo of China. Choi became paralyzed in his lower body due to a car accident in his senior year of high school and started playing badminton during his rehabilitation. It was his first ever Paralympics. Team Korea also added 2 bronze medals. Kim Jong-nam won bronze in the mixed 25-meter pistol event. After becoming disabled in a car accident in 2010, he started shooting in 2013, dedicating himself fully to the sport and won a medal in his first Paralympics in Paris. Another bronze was added in the badminton singles match, where in between 2 other Korean players. Kim Jong-jun defeated Yoo Soo-young, earning his 3rd medal following his 2 silvers at the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics. South Korea is currently 14th place in the medal standings with 3 gold, 7 silver, and 8 bronze medals. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
On the K-pop front, girl group 21 is coming back on stage just in time to celebrate its 15th debut anniversary this year. And the response from fans to the upcoming concerts is phenomenal. All tickets for the 21 concert series at Kobe World Memorial Hall on November 30th and December 1st, as well as the December 14th and 15th concerts in Arirang Arena in Tokyo, have sold out. According to YG Entertainment, the overwhelming demand has led to the arrangement of additional concerts on November 29th in Kobe and December 13th in Tokyo, bringing the total number of performances in neighboring Japan to 6. This event will be the first solo concert by the girl group in a decade. Researchers here have developed a system that can predict soil creep, a geological process that involves downward movement of particles on slopes covered with loose material. Our Cha Yoon-kyung tells us why this development is important.
This is near Toamsan Mountain in Gyeongju, 2 kilometers away from Seokguram Grotto. There is a depression in the center of the mountain. Soil creep and landslides appear similar, but there is a distinction between them. A landslide happens all of a sudden, while soil creep is slow and consistent, bringing the risk of recurrent earth movements. There are distinct differences among their geological features, soil consistency, and moving speed. Most earth movements that occur in mountainous areas of South Korea are likely to be landslides, which occur on steep slopes of 20 to 40 degrees. Recently, soil creep has been observed on gentle slopes of less than 20 degrees. National researchers have made progress on a prediction system that will notify them of soil creep in its early stages. The research team installed various sensors, such as wire extensometers, groundwater gauges, and displacement meters for structures that are connected via wired and wireless systems to a central monitoring station. While existing landslide prediction is focused on shallow collapses of land, the soil creep system monitors not only surface layers but also deep underground. The system can remotely predict the emergence rate and extent of soil creep through the sensors, also incorporating GPS, without the need for the physical presence of researchers. Another strength of the system is that it can be used regardless of the weather.
While humans had to make physical measurements in the past, the remote system allows us to check on the spot information through ICT with values observed by the sensors.
More than 60% of cases of soil creep are initiated by artificial changes to the landscape, such as the building of roads or industrial complexes. The research team plans to monitor soil creep nationwide by installing remote systems in mountainous regions across the country. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
Let's move on to the world now. Starting off in the U.S., where the presidential campaign is heating up. In an interview with Fox News, former President Donald Trump accused Vice President Kamala Harris for mistreating former Vice President Mike Pence. Trump's remarks came as he called Harris an unpleasant person and criticized the way she treats others. The interview also touched on Harris questioning of Brett Kavanaugh during his 2018 Senate confirmation hearings after Trump nominated him to the U.S. Supreme Court. Harris' campaign quickly responded to Trump's remarks. The campaign posted on X saying, in a stunningly senile moment, Donald Trump just suggested it was Kamala Harris who treated Mike Pence poorly, and that Trump clearly can't remember anything, along with a link to a video of Trump's comments. The U.S. Department of Justice said Monday that a plane used by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro had been seized and flown from the Dominican Republic to Florida after it was determined that the purchase of the aircraft violated American sanctions. The Venezuelan government confirmed that President Maduro had used the plane and condemned the seizure, calling it illegal and an example of repeated criminal behavior by the U.S. A U.S. Commerce Department spokesman said the seizure sends a clear message their aircraft illegally purchased from the United States by sanctioned Venezuelan officials cannot simply disappear without consequence. The aircraft seizure comes amid ongoing domestic and international pressure on President Maduro connected to the country's July 28 election, which Maduro claims to have won. The opposition says it has copies of vote tallies which show that their candidate was the winner. Pope Francis has set off on a 12-day tour of the Asia-Pacific region, which includes visits to 4 countries. Despite recent health issues, the 87-year-old leader of the Catholic Church departed from Rome on Monday afternoon local time to begin a trip spanning 33,000 kilometers, the pontiff's longest ever trip. The Pope's first stop is Indonesia's capital Jakarta, where he will stay until Friday before visiting Papua New Guinea, East Timor, and Singapore. During this tour, he is expected to deliver a strong message urging global action against climate change. The countries on his itinerary are particularly vulnerable to the effects of global warming, rising sea levels, increasingly severe and unpredictable heat waves, and typhoons. Yoon Se-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Seoul had temperatures going down below 30 degrees Celsius yesterday after 35 days. But temperatures jumped right back to the 30s again with morning sunshine. In fact, the central regions and Jeollado provinces should notice highs going 1 to 5 degrees higher this afternoon. Meanwhile, certain parts of Korea and Jeju will see on and off rain, with Jeju Island seeing up to 40 millimeters. The rest of the south could see 5 to 20 throughout the day today. But the heat stays on Jeju. The island saw a tropical night return last night with an expected high of 32 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Meanwhile, most of the western regions should make it to 31 degrees. Cloudy skies for most regions this afternoon except Busan and nearby areas. Now, those on Jeju need to keep an umbrella handy through Thursday, and there will be slight heat relief on Thursday in central parts of Korea with rain, but afternoon heat continues until Sunday. That's Korea for you. Here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next, our daily panel session, so do stay with us. And as always, thank you for now.